My name is Jacob, and what I'm about to tell you is a story that changed not just my life, but the lives of everyone in our small community of Springfield, Illinois. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and the lengths one man will go to protect his family's honor. But most importantly, it's about how sometimes the people closest to us can be the ones who hurt us the most. 5 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was 28 years old, married to my college sweetheart Rebecca, and we had just welcomed our daughter Chloe into the world. I worked as a mechanic at Henderson's Auto Shop, the most trusted garage in town, and Rebecca taught second grade at Springfield Elementary. We lived in a modest 2-story house on Maple Street that we'd bought with our combined savings and a loan from my father. Our life seemed perfect from the outside, and honestly, it felt pretty perfect from the inside too. Rebecca was the kind of woman who made everyone around her feel comfortable. She had this warm laugh that could fill a room and a way of making even the grumpiest customers at the school bake sales smile. When Chloe was born, Rebecca took a year off from teaching to focus on being a mother, and I picked up extra shifts at the shop to make up for the lost income. That's when we decided who would be Chloe's godfather. Connor Mitchell had been my best friend since we were 10 years old. We'd grown up on the same street, gone to the same schools, and he'd been the best man at my wedding. Connor worked for Midwest Insurance, had his own office downtown, and everyone in Springfield knew him as a stand-up guy. He volunteered at the local food bank, coached Little League on weekends, and never missed church on Sunday. "There's nobody I trust more than Connor," I told Rebecca one evening as we watched Chloe sleep in her crib. "If anything ever happened to us, I know he'd take care of her like she was his own." Rebecca smiled and squeezed my hand. "He's going to be such a good godfather. Chloe's lucky to have him." The christening was beautiful. Connor stood at the altar holding Chloe, promising to guide her spiritual development and be there for her always. My parents cried, Rebecca's parents beamed with pride, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. After the ceremony, we had a big party at our house. Connor made a speech about how honored he was to be chosen and how he'd always protect our little family. Looking back now, I wonder if he already had plans to destroy it. The first 3 years after Chloe's birth were genuinely the happiest of my life. Connor was everything a godfather should be and more. He came over every Sunday for dinner, brought thoughtful gifts for Chloe's birthdays and holidays, and even helped me finish the basement when I decided to turn it into a playroom. Connor was single at the time, having broken up with his longtime girlfriend Sarah about 6 months before Chloe was born. "I'm focusing on my career right now," he'd tell people when they asked why he wasn't dating. "Besides, I've got my goddaughter to spoil." Rebecca adored Connor. She'd light up whenever he walked through the door, always having his favorite coffee ready and asking about his day at the insurance office. She'd send him home with leftovers from dinner and birthday cake from Chloe's parties. Sometimes I'd joke that she treated him better than she treated me, but it was just that, a joke. I was grateful that my wife and best friend got along so well. Connor became part of our routine. Sunday dinners, of course, but also random weeknight visits when he'd claim he was in the neighborhood. He'd arrive just as I was getting home from work, and Rebecca would invite him to stay for dinner. He'd play with Chloe, help with bath time, and read her bedtime stories in funny voices that made her giggle. "You're so good with kids," Rebecca would tell him. "You're going to make some woman very happy someday." Connor would always deflect these comments with a smile. "I'm not looking for anyone right now. I've got everything I need right here with my favorite girls." I should have paid more attention to the way he said, "my favorite girls." During this time, my business at Henderson's was growing. Word was getting around that I was the guy to see for transmission problems, and I was working longer hours than ever. Some days I wouldn't get home until 7 or 8 in the evening, and I'd find Connor already there, having dinner with Rebecca and Chloe. "Connor stopped by to drop off those insurance papers you asked about," Rebecca would explain, "and I invited him to stay." I never questioned it. Why would I? Connor was family. The first time I felt something was off was during Chloe's 3rd birthday party. It was a Saturday afternoon in September, and we'd invited about 15 families from the neighborhood and Rebecca's school. Connor, naturally, was helping with everything, setting up tables, grilling hamburgers, entertaining the kids. I was in the kitchen getting more ice when I saw Rebecca and Connor through the window. They were standing by the grill, and Rebecca was laughing at something Connor had said. But it wasn't her usual laugh. It was softer, more intimate. And the way Connor was looking at her. I'd never seen him look at anyone like that. They were standing closer than necessary, and when Connor reached over to move a strand of hair from Rebecca's face, something cold settled in my stomach. I walked outside with the ice, and they immediately stepped apart. Connor started talking loudly about the weather, and Rebecca busied herself with arranging the hamburger buns. The moment felt charged with something I couldn't quite name. "Everything okay out here?" I asked. "Perfect," Connor said too quickly. "Just discussing the best way to get these burgers just right." Rebecca smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "The Millers are asking about you, honey. Something about their car making a strange noise." I spent the rest of the party talking to neighbors about their automotive problems, but I kept glancing over at Rebecca and Connor. There was something different about the way they interacted, little looks, brief touches that lasted just a moment too long, inside jokes that I wasn't part of. That night, after we'd put Chloe to bed and cleaned up from the party, I brought it up to Rebecca. "You and Connor seem to be having a good time today." She was brushing her teeth and didn't look at me in the mirror. "He's always fun at parties. You know Connor, he's the life of any gathering. You two were laughing a lot." Now she did look at me, toothbrush still in her mouth. After she rinsed and spit, she turned around. "Jacob, what are you trying to say?" "Nothing. Just, you seemed really comfortable with him today." Rebecca sighed. "Connor is your best friend and our daughter's godfather. Of course I'm comfortable with him. Should I be rude to him instead?" She had a point and I felt foolish for bringing it up. "No, you're right. I'm sorry. I guess I'm just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was worried. And that worry was about to grow into something much bigger. Over the next few months, I started noticing things that made my stomach twist. Little things that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture I didn't want to see. Connor's visits became more frequent. He'd show up on Tuesday afternoons when he knew I'd be at work late. He'd call the house phone instead of my cell phone, and I'd often come home to find them hanging up quickly, claiming it was just Connor checking in. Rebecca started mentioning Connor more often in casual conversation. "Connor thinks we should paint the kitchen yellow. Connor recommended this great restaurant. Connor says Chloe is advanced for her age." It was always Connor this, Connor that. But the thing that really got my attention was the way Rebecca started dressing when she knew Connor was coming over. She'd put on makeup for Sunday dinner, wear her nice jewelry for casual weeknight visits. She'd spray on perfume before Connor arrived, claiming she'd been cooking and wanted to smell better. One evening in November, I came home to find Connor's car in our driveway. Nothing unusual there, he often stopped by unannounced. But when I walked into the house, there was something different about the atmosphere. Rebecca and Connor were sitting on opposite ends of the couch watching TV, but they both looked up at me with guilty expressions. "Hey honey," Rebecca said, jumping up a little too quickly. "You're home early." "Traffic was light," I said, looking between them. "What are you watching?" "Just some romantic comedy," Connor said, reaching for the remote to change the channel. "Pretty boring stuff." But I'd seen the screen before he changed it. It wasn't a romantic comedy. It was the news. "Where's Chloe?" I asked. "Napping upstairs," Rebecca said. "She had a big day at preschool." I nodded and went to the kitchen to grab a beer. Through the doorway I could hear them whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. When I came back they were talking about the weather in normal voices. That night I lay awake thinking about everything I'd observed over the past few months. Was I being paranoid or was something actually going on? Rebecca was still affectionate with me, still shared her day and her thoughts. But there was something different about her, something distant that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I decided I was being ridiculous. Connor was my best friend. Rebecca was my wife. They'd both proven their loyalty to me and to our family over and over again. My suspicions were probably just the result of working too much and not getting enough sleep. But then came the phone calls. It started in December. Rebecca's phone would ring at odd times, during dinner, while we were watching TV, early in the morning before I left for work. She'd always answer it quickly, usually saying, "Hello?" in a soft voice that was different from her normal phone voice. "Who was that?" I'd ask. "Wrong number," she'd say. Or telemarketer. Or someone from school. But telemarketers don't usually make Rebecca smile the way she did after those calls. And wrong numbers don't usually result in 20-minute conversations that Rebecca would take in the other room, so as not to disturb whatever I was doing. One Saturday morning in January, Rebecca's phone rang while she was in the shower. I was getting dressed nearby when I heard it buzzing on her nightstand. Without thinking I glanced at the screen. Connor. It was 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Why would Connor be calling Rebecca directly, especially so early? I stared at the phone until it stopped ringing, my heart pounding in my chest. When Rebecca got out of the shower, I mentioned it casually. "Connor called while you were in the shower." She froze for just a second, towel wrapped around her. "Oh, did you answer?" "No, I figured you could call him back if it was important." "It probably wasn't important," she said quickly. You know Connor, he calls about random things all the time. But she did call him back. About 10 minutes later, while I was downstairs making coffee, I heard her talking quietly on the phone. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone. It was intimate, personal. The way she talked to me when we were sharing secrets. That's when I knew. I didn't want to know, and I tried to convince myself I was wrong, but deep in my gut, I knew something was happening between my wife and my best friend. Instead of confronting them directly, I decided I needed proof. Maybe I was wrong, I hoped I was wrong, but if I wasn't, I needed to be sure before I destroyed our family over suspicions. The opportunity came in February when Henderson offered me a chance to attend a 3-day automotive training seminar in Chicago. It was a great opportunity for my career, and the timing was perfect for my investigation. "I'll miss you," Rebecca said when I told her about the trip. "But it sounds like it'll be really good for the shop." "Connor could check in on you and Chloe while I'm gone," I suggested, watching her face carefully. "That's not necessary," she said quickly. "We'll be fine on our own." But her eyes lit up in a way that made my stomach drop. I told Connor about the trip too. "Keep an eye on the girls for me while I'm gone?" "Of course, buddy," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "You don't even need to ask." The seminar was scheduled for Wednesday through Friday. I left Tuesday evening, driving to Chicago and checking into my hotel. But Wednesday morning, instead of attending the first session, I drove back to Springfield. I parked 3 blocks away from my house and walked through the woods that bordered our backyard. What I saw through my kitchen window changed everything. Connor and Rebecca were kissing. Not a friendly peck on the cheek, not an accidental brush of lips. A real, passionate, intimate kiss that lasted at least 30 seconds. When they broke apart, Connor cupped Rebecca's face in his hands, and she smiled at him the way she used to smile at me. I stood there in the woods watching my world collapse. My best friend and my wife. The 2 people I trusted most in the world. The godfather of my child and the mother of my child, betraying everything we'd built together. I wanted to burst through the door and confront them, but something stopped me. Maybe it was shock, or maybe it was the realization that I needed to think this through carefully. This wasn't just about me, it was about Chloe too. Whatever I did next would affect her for the rest of her life. I crept back to my car and drove to Chicago, somehow managing to attend the rest of the seminar while my mind raced with plans and anger and heartbreak. I called home each night and Rebecca sounded normal. Asking about the training, telling me about Chloe's day, saying she missed me. "Connor stopped by yesterday to check on us," she mentioned casually on Thursday night. "He brought Chloe a new book." I bet he did. When I got home from Chicago, I acted completely normal. I hugged Rebecca, played with Chloe, and asked Connor about his week when he came over for Sunday dinner. But inside I was planning. I needed evidence. Real, undeniable proof of what was happening. I couldn't just accuse them based on what I'd seen through the window. They could deny it, claim I'd misunderstood, make me look like a paranoid husband. I needed something that would leave no room for doubt. The answer came to me the following week: security cameras. I did my research carefully, looking into systems that could record continuously and store footage for weeks at a time. I found a setup that included 4 wireless cameras with night vision, motion detection, and smartphone access. The total cost was $800, money we'd been saving for a family vacation. But this was more important than any vacation. I presented the idea to Rebecca as a practical security measure. "There have been a few break-ins in the neighborhood lately," I told her, which was true. "I think we should invest in some security cameras." "That's a good idea," she agreed. "Especially with Chloe getting older and playing outside more." Connor was supportive too. "Smart thinking, Jake. Can't be too careful these days." I installed the cameras on a Saturday with both Rebecca and Connor helping. 2 cameras covered the front and back entrances. One was positioned to see the living room and kitchen, and one monitored the upstairs hallway. I made sure to explain to both of them exactly where the cameras were and what they could see. "The one in the living room has a great wide angle," I said, testing the view on my phone. "It can see the whole room, including the couch and the kitchen doorway." Rebecca nodded, but I noticed she seemed to make a mental note of exactly where the camera's field of vision ended. For the first week, nothing happened. Connor's visits continued as normal, but he and Rebecca were careful to stay within appropriate boundaries whenever they were in view of the cameras. I began to wonder if my confronting them indirectly through the security system had scared them straight. But then I realized something. The cameras had audio. I started listening to the recordings more carefully, paying attention not just to what I could see but to what I could hear. That's when I discovered they'd figured out the blind spots. The living room camera had a wide view, but it couldn't see the area directly beneath it, near the front window. The kitchen camera could see most of the room but not the small alcove by the pantry. I realized that Rebecca and Connor had mapped out these blind spots and were using them. I'd hear footsteps moving to areas I couldn't see, then whispered conversations that the audio couldn't quite pick up. Sometimes I'd hear Rebecca laugh softly, or Connor's voice saying things like, "I missed you," or, "We have to be careful." One afternoon I reviewed footage from a day when I'd worked late. Connor had arrived at 3:30, just after Chloe's nap time. I could see them greeting each other normally in the living room, playing with Chloe for about an hour. Then Rebecca put Chloe down for a second nap, and both adults disappeared from view. For the next 2 hours I could occasionally hear voices from the blind spots, but I couldn't see anything. The frustration was driving me crazy. I knew they were together, but I didn't have visual proof of anything inappropriate. That's when I decided to get creative. I told Rebecca I was thinking of adding more cameras to cover the areas the current system missed. For complete security, I explained. I want to make sure every angle is covered. Don't you think 4 cameras are enough? She asked. I mean, how much security do we really need? I just want our family to be safe, I said, watching her face. She didn't argue, but I could see she was concerned. And sure enough, Connor's visits became much more infrequent over the next 2 weeks. But love, or whatever this was, finds a way. Instead of meeting at our house, they started meeting elsewhere. Rebecca began running errands that took longer than they should have. She'd go to the grocery store and come back 3 hours later with only a few items. She'd take Chloe to the park and return with stories of running into Connor there by coincidence. One Thursday afternoon, Rebecca told me she was taking Chloe to her mother's house for a few hours. Mom wants to teach her how to make cookies, she explained. But something about the way she said it made me suspicious. After she left, I called my mother-in-law. "Oh, Jacob." Mrs. Williams sounded surprised. "I wasn't expecting to see Rebecca today. Did she say she was coming over?" My heart sank. She must have gotten her days mixed up. "Thanks, Mrs. Williams." Now I knew they were meeting somewhere else. But where? I decided to follow Rebecca the next time she left for one of her mysterious errands. The following Tuesday, she announced she needed to run to the store and would take Chloe with her. I waited 5 minutes after she left, then got in my truck and drove toward the shopping center. But instead of going to the store, Rebecca's car was parked at Riverside Park, on the far side near the old pavilion where fewer people went. I parked behind some trees and walked through the woods until I could see the pavilion. Connor's car was there too. Through the trees, I could see Rebecca and Connor sitting on a picnic table while Chloe played on the nearby playground equipment. They weren't just talking. Connor had his arm around Rebecca, and she was leaning into him. As I watched, he kissed the top of her head, and she tilted her face up to look at him with an expression of complete adoration. This was it. This was the proof I needed. But I wanted more. Over the next 3 weeks, I documented their pattern. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at Riverside Park. Sometimes Saturday mornings at the coffee shop on the other side of town, when Rebecca claimed she was meeting her friend Lisa from work. I never approached or confronted them. I just watched and took pictures with my phone from a distance. The pictures weren't great quality, but they clearly showed Connor and Rebecca in intimate embraces, holding hands, kissing. In several photos, Chloe was visible in the background, playing innocently while the 2 most important adults in her life betrayed her father. By the end of March, I had dozens of photos and hours of audio recordings from the security cameras. I had documented their affair thoroughly. But I still hadn't decided what to do with the evidence. That decision was made for me when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I'd come home early from work to surprise Rebecca and Chloe. I walked into the house quietly, planning to sneak up on them, when I heard voices from the kitchen. Rebecca and Connor were there and they were talking about me. "He's been acting strange lately," Rebecca was saying. "More suspicious. Yesterday he asked me specific questions about where I went when I took Chloe to the store. Do you think he knows?" Connor's voice. "I don't know. Maybe. He's not stupid, Connor. And you've been coming around a lot less since he installed those cameras. We have to be more careful. Maybe we should cool things off for a while." There was a pause, then Rebecca's voice, softer now. "I don't want to cool things off. I want to be with you. Really be with you. Rebecca. I'm serious. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Jacob and we're not happy anymore. We haven't been for a long time. We just go through the motions." My blood ran cold. Was that true? Had I been so focused on work, on providing for our family, that I'd missed the signs that my wife was unhappy? "What are you saying?" Connor asked. "I'm saying maybe it's time to stop sneaking around. Maybe it's time to be honest about what we want. You want to leave Jacob? I want to be happy. And I'm happy with you. I heard footsteps moving toward the blind spot near the pantry, then whispered conversation I couldn't make out. I crept closer to the kitchen doorway, my heart pounding. We'd have to be smart about it, Connor was saying. Think about Chloe. Think about our families. This is going to hurt a lot of people. I know, Rebecca replied. But doesn't everyone deserve to be happy? Don't we deserve to be together? What about Jacob? He's my best friend. And he's my husband. But Connor, I love you. I'm in love with you. Aren't you in love with me? There was a long pause. Then Connor's voice, you know I am. I'd heard enough. I backed away from the kitchen and left the house as quietly as I'd entered. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of a nearby convenience store, shaking with rage and heartbreak. They were planning to leave me. My wife and my best friend were going to destroy our family, destroy Chloe's world so they could be together. And they were talking about it in my house with my daughter upstairs while I worked to support them. That's when I decided what I was going to do. Chloe's 4th birthday was 6 weeks away. We'd already started planning the party, a big celebration in our backyard with family, friends, neighbors, and kids from her preschool. We'd sent out invitations, ordered a bounce house, and planned a barbecue for about 40 people. Connor, naturally, would be there. As Chloe's godfather, he was always the guest of honor at her birthday parties, giving a speech and helping with the cake-cutting ceremony. This year's party was going to be special. Very special. I spent the next 6 weeks collecting more evidence, but now I had a specific plan for how to use it. I documented every secret meeting, every hidden phone call, every lie Rebecca told about her whereabouts. I organized all the photos chronologically and enhanced the audio recordings to make the conversations clearer. But more importantly, I prepared for the party. I rented professional audiovisual equipment under the pretense of wanting to create a special slideshow presentation for Chloe's birthday. I want to put together a video of her first 4 years, I told Rebecca. Something really nice that we can show everyone at the party. Rebecca loved the idea. That's so sweet, Jacob. Chloe will love seeing herself grow up on the big screen. Connor was enthusiastic too. Great idea, buddy. You want me to help you put it together? I'm pretty good with computers. Thanks, but I want it to be a surprise for everyone, I said. Including you. Over the next several weeks, Rebecca and Connor helped me collect photos and videos of Chloe's life. Rebecca went through her phone and our computer, gathering hundreds of images. Connor contributed photos from various birthday parties, holidays, and family gatherings where he'd been present. What they didn't know was that I was also preparing a very different kind of slideshow. I rented a professional projector and large screen setup that could display both photos and videos. I tested the equipment multiple times to make sure everything would work perfectly. I created 2 separate presentations, one with innocent family photos, and another with the evidence I'd collected of Rebecca and Connor's affair. The plan was simple. I'd start with the family slideshow to get everyone relaxed and happy. Then, when everyone was gathered around the screen, expecting more cute photos of Chloe, I'd switch to the evidence presentation. I wanted everyone to see what Rebecca and Connor had been doing. Our families, our friends, our neighbors, Chloe's teachers, everyone who cared about our family. I wanted them to witness the betrayal that had been happening in secret for months. Maybe it was cruel. Maybe it was an overreaction. But I was beyond caring about social norms or Rebecca and Connor's feelings. They'd made their choice to betray me and our family. Now they could face the consequences publicly. May 15th was a beautiful Saturday. The weather was perfect for an outdoor party, sunny and 75 degrees with a light breeze. Rebecca had decorated the backyard with pink and purple balloons, Chloe's favorite colors, and the bounce house was set up on the far side of the yard. I'd been acting completely normal for weeks, and I could tell Rebecca was starting to relax. She'd even mentioned that she was proud of how much effort I was putting into making Chloe's party special. "You're being such a good dad," she told me that morning as we set up tables and chairs. "Chloe is so lucky to have you." The irony was almost too much to bear. Connor arrived early to help with the setup, bringing gifts and offering to man the grill. "This is going to be the best party yet," he said, hugging Rebecca a little too long when he thought I wasn't looking. Guests started arriving around noon. Both sets of grandparents, Rebecca's sister and her family, my brother and his wife, several of Rebecca's teaching colleagues, neighbors from our street, and about 8 families with children from Chloe's preschool. Chloe was in heaven, running around in her birthday dress, playing with friends, and soaking up attention from all the adults who adored her. She kept asking when we were going to show the movie about me that I'd been working on. "After we eat cake," I promised her. It'll be the grand finale of your party. We ate hamburgers and hot dogs, played games, and sang happy birthday. Chloe blew out her candles and opened her presents while everyone watched and took photos. Connor gave a brief speech about what a special little girl she was and how proud he was to be her godfather. As he spoke, I watched Rebecca watching him, and I could see the love in her eyes. In a few minutes, everyone else would see it too. After the presents were opened and the dishes were cleared, I announced it was time for the special slideshow. If everyone could gather around the screen, I said, gesturing to the professional setup I'd arranged on the deck. I've put together something very special to celebrate Chloe's 4 years with us. About 35 people gathered around the large screen, with Chloe sitting in the front row between her grandparents. Rebecca stood to my left and Connor was on my right, both of them smiling in anticipation. Before we start, I said, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Family means everything, and we're so grateful to have all of you in Chloe's life. I clicked the remote, and the screen came to life with a photo of newborn Chloe in the hospital. There were collective ahs from the crowd as I clicked through the first dozen photos: Chloe's first smile, first steps, first Christmas, first day of preschool. Look how much you've grown. Rebecca called to Chloe, who giggled with delight at seeing herself as a baby. I continued through about 50 photos, narrating some of them and letting others speak for themselves. Connor appeared in many of the pictures, holding Chloe, playing with her, reading to her, being the perfect godfather. Connor has been such an important part of Chloe's life, I said, looking directly at him. Always there for our family, always willing to help out. Connor smiled and nodded. She's like my own daughter, he said. Yes, I replied. You've certainly made yourself comfortable in our home. Something in my tone must have alerted Rebecca, because she shot me a questioning look. But I just smiled and clicked to the next slide. Now, I announced to the crowd, I want to share some very special moments that I've captured recently. Moments that show just how close our family has become. I clicked the remote, and the first photo of Rebecca and Connor embracing at Riverside Park appeared on the screen. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, confused murmurs, someone saying, "What is that?" Rebecca went white as a sheet, and Connor stepped backward as if he'd been slapped. This photo was taken 3 weeks ago, I said calmly, as if I were still narrating a normal family slideshow. As you can see, my wife Rebecca and my best friend Connor have grown very close indeed. I clicked to the next photo, Connor and Rebecca kissing on a park bench while Chloe played nearby. And this one was taken 2 weeks ago. Such a touching family moment, don't you think? The crowd was buzzing now. Some people were staring at the screen in shock, others were looking at Rebecca and Connor, who both appeared to be frozen in place. "Jacob, stop," Rebecca whispered. But I wasn't stopping. I clicked through a dozen more photos, Rebecca and Connor holding hands at the coffee shop, Connor with his arm around Rebecca at the park, intimate embraces and stolen kisses, all while Chloe played innocently in the background. These photos span the last 2 months, I narrated. But the relationship they document has been going on much longer. In fact, I have audio recordings from our home security system that date their affair back at least 8 months. I clicked to a slide with a transcript of one of their conversations from our kitchen, enlarged so everyone could read it clearly. "Rebecca, I don't want to cool things off. I want to be with you. Really be with you." "Connor, Rebecca? Rebecca, I'm serious. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Jacob and we're not happy anymore." My mother-in-law started crying. My father looked like he wanted to hit Connor. Rebecca's sister was staring at her with complete shock and disgust. "Jacob, please," Connor finally found his voice. "Not here. Not in front of everyone." "Not in front of everyone?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the way you two conducted your affair, not in front of everyone? The way you betrayed me and my daughter, not in front of everyone?" I clicked to another slide, a larger, clearer photo of Connor and Rebecca in a passionate embrace. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "my wife and the godfather of my child. The 2 people I trusted most in the world. The 2 people who promised to love, honor, and protect our family." By now, several people had started gathering their things and heading toward the door. The children, including Chloe, were confused and frightened by the adult drama they didn't understand. Rebecca finally found her voice. "Jacob, you're scaring Chloe. Please stop this." I looked down at my daughter, who was indeed looking scared and confused. My parents had moved to either side of her, shielding her from the screen and preparing to take her inside. "You're right," I said, clicking off the projector. "I wouldn't want to traumatize our daughter any more than you two already have." The party ended immediately, of course. Guests left quickly and quietly, most of them avoiding eye contact with Rebecca and Connor. A few people, my parents, Rebecca's parents, my brother, stayed behind to help clean up and to demand explanations. Connor tried to approach me. "Jake, I know how this looks, but..." "How this looks?" I interrupted. "How this looks is like my best friend and my wife have been having an affair for months, meeting in secret, lying to my face and planning to destroy my family. Is that not how it is?" Connor never came back to Springfield. His parents told people he'd taken a job with his company's branch office in Denver, but I suspected he'd just run away from the mess he'd helped create. Without the secrecy and excitement of an affair, and faced with the reality of what their relationship had cost, Connor apparently decided that Rebecca wasn't worth fighting for. Rebecca was devastated by his abandonment. During one of her supervised visits with Chloe, she broke down crying and tried to explain to me why she'd done what she'd done. "I felt invisible in our marriage," she said. "You were always working, always focused on the shop." Connor paid attention to me. He listened to me. "So instead of talking to your husband about feeling neglected," I replied, "you decided to have an affair with my best friend? I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you and Chloe. But Jacob, I was lonely. I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 6 years, the mother of my child, and I felt nothing but pity for her." "You weren't lonely, Rebecca. You were selfish. There's a difference." The community's reaction was swift and brutal. Rebecca lost her teaching job when the school district decided that her behavior made her unsuitable to work with children and families. She had to move in with her parents temporarily because she couldn't afford rent on her substitute teaching income. Connor's insurance office quietly transferred all his clients to other agents and removed his name from their advertising. His reputation in Springfield was destroyed, and everyone knew why he'd really left town. As for me, I found myself receiving an unexpected amount of support from our community. Parents from Chloe's preschool, customers from the shop, neighbors, and even strangers would stop me on the street to express their sympathy and admiration for how I'd handled the situation. "You did the right thing," people would tell me. They needed to be exposed. But late at night, when Chloe was asleep and I was alone in the house that had once been filled with laughter and love, I wondered if I really had done the right thing. Maybe I could have handled it differently. Maybe I could have confronted them privately, tried counseling, found a way to save our family without destroying so many lives in the process. Then I'd remember the look on Rebecca's face when she told Connor she loved him, and I'd know that our marriage was over long before I showed those photos at Chloe's birthday party. The first year after the divorce was the hardest. Chloe struggled to understand why Mommy didn't live with us anymore and why Uncle Connor had gone away. She would ask when he was coming back, when we were all going to be a family again, why everyone had been so upset at her birthday party. I tried to explain it in terms a 4-year-old could understand. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that hurt other people," I told her. "Mommy and Uncle Connor made some bad choices and now things have to be different." "But I miss Uncle Connor," she would say. "He used to read me stories." Those conversations broke my heart every time. Connor had been a father figure to Chloe, and his sudden disappearance from her life was traumatic for her. I found a good child therapist who specialized in helping kids deal with family disruption, and slowly, Chloe began to adjust to our new reality. Rebecca's visits with Chloe were awkward and painful for everyone involved. Rebecca would try to act like nothing had changed, planning fun activities and buying gifts, but Chloe could sense the tension and often became clingy and emotional after spending time with her mother. After about 6 months, Rebecca asked if she could reduce her visitation schedule. "It's too hard," she told me during one of our brief conversations. "Every time I see Chloe, I'm reminded of everything I lost." I was angry but not surprised. Rebecca had shown her true character during the affair. When things got difficult or uncomfortable, she ran away from her responsibilities. Now she was doing it again, abandoning her daughter because facing the consequences of her actions was too painful. "Chloe is your daughter," I told her. "She didn't choose any of this. She's the innocent victim in your mess." "I know that," Rebecca snapped. "Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I hate myself for what I've done to her?" "If you really hated what you'd done," I replied, "you'd be fighting harder to fix it instead of running away." But Rebecca did reduce her visits to once a month, and then eventually stopped asking for them altogether. By Chloe's 5th birthday, Rebecca had essentially disappeared from our lives entirely. 2 years after the divorce, Chloe and I had settled into a routine that worked for both of us. She was in kindergarten now, making friends and excelling in school. She rarely asked about Rebecca anymore, and she'd stopped mentioning Connor entirely. I'd made some changes in my life too. I hired another mechanic at the shop so I could work fewer hours and spend more time with Chloe. We had dinner together every night, and I made sure to be available for all her school events and activities. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow. I'd redecorated some of the rooms, replacing things that reminded me of Rebecca and Connor with new furniture and decorations that reflected just Chloe and me. The security cameras were long gone. I'd removed them the week after the divorce was finalized. I started dating again cautiously and discreetly. Nothing serious, just casual dinners with women I met through friends or work. I wasn't ready for anything serious, and I wasn't sure I'd ever fully trust another person the way I'd trusted Rebecca and Connor. But I was learning to be happy again. Different than before, but genuinely happy. Chloe and I developed our own traditions. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon walks in the park, bedtime stories where I'd make up adventures featuring a brave little girl who looked suspiciously like her. We were building a new life together, just the two of us. Looking back on that birthday party, I don't regret my decision to expose the truth. Rebecca and Connor made their choices and they faced the consequences. The people who mattered, our real family and friends, stood by us when we needed them most. Chloe doesn't remember much about the party or the aftermath. Her memories of Connor are fading, which is probably for the best. She knows her parents are divorced and that some people make bad choices, but she also knows she's loved and protected and valued. And that's enough. That's everything. As for me, I wake up every morning in a house filled with honesty instead of lies, loyalty instead of betrayal, and genuine love instead of pretense. Chloe and I have breakfast together, plan our day, and face whatever comes with the confidence of people who have survived the worst and come out stronger. We don't need anyone else to complete our family. We have each other, we have our integrity, and we have the truth. After everything we've been through, that feels like more than enough. The marriage is over. The betrayal is in the past. But our life together, Chloe's and mine, is just beginning. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.